Hiya, and welcome to episode 3 of Running Cooked. So I've brought you outside today. It's quite a nice day. The sun's out a little bit. It's about 14 degrees, quite comfortable. In my shorts, which I am pretty much all year round, especially when running. But I'm here to talk to you today about obviously my training that's gone on this week, how it's gone, how it's felt, and then also I'm going to give you 3 tips that I've learned through running and through speaking to people throughout the years that I have been running that might benefit you as well. So kicking us off, my training this week's gone quite well. I've not been in 100% shape. I've started with a bit of a sniffly cold, but it is this time of year, and obviously I'm back delivering in school, so I'm going to pick up colds and stuff. Thankfully it's not COVID, which is obviously going around at the minute, but it's one of them things, and it's part of working with children. I always say every single year I'm going to get out of working with children, but I just can't help myself. I enjoy it, and it's a rewarding job. But training, back to that. So Monday kicked off nice and steady miles. Throughout the week I try to get slower as it gets towards Friday. Wednesday night, highlight of the week, did some hill reps at back of Lock Park with Hannah and her family, Sean and Jack. So running about a 0.3 mile hill, so about 500 metres, and my philosophy with it is I ran to the top as quick as I could, and then I ran down 3/4 of the way as quick as I could, and then broke into, for the last quarter, broke into a bit of a steady jog. My thinking behind that is, in a race, when you get to the top of the hill, you recover quick, or you're meant to recover quick, so you can attack the other side downhill. So instead of trotting back down like I've done in previous hill sessions, I thought when I get to the top I'll spin and then attack it back downhill as well, trying to replicate and copy what I'd do in a race. It worked well, I enjoyed it. I probably averaged about, I think it was about 5:40 for the session, which on hills isn't too bad. And then Hannah, Sean and Jack as well, must have worked for them, because Jack's gone to PB at Hillsborough Park Run, or not Hillsborough Park Run as they call it now, and he's run it in 25 minutes something this morning, and he turned 8 yesterday, so for his 8th birthday he's gave himself a PB. Anna as well, she PB'd an unofficial PB at Hillsborough this morning, and ran just under 21 minutes, but she's got potential and she'll run much quicker when races return, and I keep telling her that. Also this week I haven't run with Dave. Dave were feeling a bit sluggish on Monday, so we didn't do his recovery run, but I tried to do it myself, and obviously I didn't do it properly, not as I would with Dave, so I have felt it for the rest of the week by not doing my full recovery with Dave. Last Sunday's run with Gary wasn't brilliant. We did plan for 20 miles, ended up doing 15, and in all honesty felt crap. Stomach wasn't right, head wasn't right, and legs wasn't right, but you take it on the chin, you move on, and you get over it. We all have them sort of runs, and thankfully Gary felt the same, so I didn't feel like that I'd let him down, or at least he told me that he told me that he felt the same, so that's just a good friend. Enjoyed it though, miles in the box, especially when you're feeling a bit rubbish. It'd be interesting to see how tomorrow's Sunday run goes, especially feeling a little bit bunged up with a bit of a cold. So then, that's my training for this week. It will be looking, I'll be doing about 105 miles again for the week, which is fairly steady and quite natural for me to do now, getting in my double days and some single days, and just enjoying the process of the training and having fun with it. I saw a thing on Facebook the other day, you never see a jogger or a runner smiling, and genuinely this week I've smiled on my runs. Like, I felt good and I felt happy within myself with the stuff that I'm doing. Right, anyway, on to my 3 tips then for running. So my 3 tips, so tip number 1 that I've learned, so throughout the years I've spoken to different people, I've read different articles, and I'm a bit of an addict when it comes to running. Last week I spoke to you about Norman Cole and how he told me about his lifestyle, and how he made running and training fit into his lifestyle, and how he counted like gardening and shopping and all that sort of stuff. And that's just one of the things that I've learned throughout the years from an individual, and it has helped me, because then I can account all my work and all my football that I play at work, all my sports sessions that I take part in at work, and all that sort of stuff. And being on my feet for so long at work, I can count that into my training as well. And when I said to somebody the other day, when I work, I run more. I don't know if it's because of stress release or anything like that, but when I work, I actually run more, and I feel comfortable running more. So in the morning, I like having that, right, you've got to start at 10 o'clock, and in my head I've got to go out and do, say, 8 mile, 10 mile, 12 mile, whatever it is, and having that time constraint. And when I haven't got that time constraint, so when I were on full furlough, I struggled to get out, and I was leaving it till 2, 3 o'clock, but I'll talk about that more in future weeks. Right, my first tip before I go off on a tangent. So shoes is a massive tip. So at the minute, I'll show you a clip as well that'll come up on the screen. I'm stood in the middle of 24 pairs of shoes that I own, and these aren't just shoes that I own for every day. These are shoes specifically that I own for running, and these shoes are part of my daily rotation. So I could wear pretty much a different pair of shoes every day of the month. Obviously I run double days, so each run will be a different pair of shoes. And I learnt that shoes and the foam in the shoes is kind of like your legs, so it needs its time to recover between each run. And if you're wearing the same sort of shoes and the same pair of shoes day after day and day after day, the foam, which whether it's Eva, P-Backs, Zoom X, which is P-Backs anyway, or Boost, which is another Eva sort of sole, whether it's these sort of foams, they need time to recover between the runs. So if you're wearing them day after day, the shoes are going to lose their springiness as it is. So I try to rotate my shoes, and I'll not wear the same pair day after day after day. What I'll do is I'll wear a pair, and then 2 or 3 days later, if I'm feeling comfortable in them again, I'll wear them again. I do have favourites, so whether it is my Infinite Reacts, which I'm quite a fan of at the minute, they're quite comfortable and just as a mileage shoe, or whether it is my On Clouds. So I wear these quite regular, they feel quite firm in comparison to the Infinite Reacts. Or likewise a pair of New Balance racing flats, so the 1400s, another favourite of mine. And then a good old faithful is the Adios Boost. So these, I think these are the Boost 5s, but I've set a lot of marathon PBs in Adios, and I'm quite thankful for Adios as well. And then obviously you can't ignore it, whether it is the Vaporflies or the 4%. So these shoes, obviously they've had some miles on. I have got another pair of 4% underneath the bed that I got in a Black Friday sale, and I have got another pair of Vaporflies underneath the bed as well, saving them for summer's day when races return. But and I've also got the Alpha Flies. But all of the shoes that I wear, they all suit my running style. So all of the shoes that I enjoy running in them, and I enjoy the feeling of running in them, and they're all comfortable. There's a lot of shoes that I've got duplicates of. So I have got 3 pairs of New Balance 1400s. I've got surrounded by about 3 pairs of Bostons, 3 pairs of Adios, some Zoom Flies, New Balance, On Clouds, and I like to vary the brands, switch them up, and I would be a good shoe reviewer, to be fair, with the amount of shoes that I've had over the time that I've been running. Some shoes do get more wear than others, so if I've bought them and I enjoy them, I'll wear them a lot, and I do change them obviously every 2-3 days. But for example, the sub 2s, the Adios. I enjoyed them, but they do feel a bit like a plimsoll, where they're a bit too firm and you don't get much out of the boost, and it feels a little bit flat. So I'm not a fan of that, but I still do wear it when I'm getting my miles in, and especially on a shorter, sharper run. It's not too bad there, but it does feel like you're slapping the floor a little bit. But shoes, big one, and it's about changing them up, freshening them up, as much as you would your socks, and just getting the most out of the shoes. I buy shoes regular, obviously, but the more shoes that you own, like, I could probably bin them, some of these, after a year and a half's worth of wear, because I'm not doing so many miles in just a single pair of shoes. So the 4%, the Nike ones, I've actually owned them since December 2018, so 2 and a bit years, and I've got a fair few miles out of them. I've run marathons in them, and I've actually wrote a 1 Hull marathon in them, so I've wrote on the side Hull marathon win. If I've got duplicates as well, I've wrote on them just to signal that they're a pair, and the duplicates, I've wrote a marathon PB on them ones. So that's my tip number 1, shoes. So having a good shoe rotation, switching them up, freshening your shoes, and keeping your shoes as fresh as what your legs hope to be. Tip number 2 then. So tip number 2 for runners that I've learned. So Brian actually asked me a question last week, so I asked everyone, if you want to ask me questions, ask me questions. Brian asked me a question about when I first increased my mileage, what did I increase it by and over how long a period. So the general rule that I live by is 10%. So I can increase it by 10% and it's not going to kill me, or I could decrease it by 10% and I'm not going to lose fitness. So when I was running at peak early 2017, I was pushing my mileage because I was looking to run the boundary in June 2017. So I was pushing my mileage up week by week, and I did it from probably, I think it was about September, but I will stats check it and I'll put it on the screen as a picture-in-picture. So from about September all the way up till about February, I believe, and I increased it, starting, I was running probably about 110 miles a week, 120, and I ended up going up to, I think my highest mileage week was 170, which works out as just short of a marathon a day. I was inspired a little bit by Ben Smith, who was running, I think it was 400 marathons in 400 days, and I looked at him, I thought, I can probably run better than him, and I could probably do that many marathons in 400 days. But I did it by 10% chunks. So if I was running 100 miles a week, I was safe going up to 110. And then if I was running 120 miles a week, I was safe going up to 132, quick maths. And then likewise, if I wanted to have a regression week where I dropped it back, I was safe from 120, dropping it back to 108, and I wouldn't lose fitness. When I did get to 170 mile weeks, I think I maintained it for about a month, and I was probably in the best shape of my life. I was running like on a Monday, I think I ran 30 mile in the day, or on a Tuesday I ran 30 mile in the day, doing like 2 long runs as it was. I wasn't working so much then, work was a bit dry, so I did have a lot of time on my hands. I did spend a lot of my time injured, and then going into April marathons, spring marathons, the night before Manchester Marathon, which I can't remember the time, I'll check it and I'll put it on the screen. The night before Manchester Marathon, I actually had my feet in an ice bucket because both my ankles were swollen, and I neglected my shoes. I'd not bought any shoes for a while, and I actually had to run the marathon with safety pins in my shoes to hold them together, to hold the uppers together, and I think at that time of my life, I wasn't struggling with balancing everything, but I just neglected certain other aspects of the running. But my rule is 10% up and 10% down. So if you are looking to increase the mileage, 10% chunks. So if you are running 40 mile weeks, you're safe up to 44, and if you're running 50 mile weeks, you're safe up to 55, and just do it in little chunks. and you've got to remember it is a marathon and not a sprint, as the saying goes. And then going forward from that, you will find yourself, you'll get fitter. Miles make champions, and that's another saying that I like to live by. And you'll feel the benefits of that 10%. And it is important. I used to do 3 weeks progression, so 3 weeks where I'd increase it by 10%, and then I used to do a week regression, where I'd drop it back a little bit, and then have my other 3 weeks to push. And then that leads me into tip number 3. So tip number 3, one that I've learned over time, and I think this is where my high mileage comes from, and my philosophy of high mileage. So I think it was 2015. I was pipped on the line at Manchester Marathon by Keith Littlewood, who, if you know him, is a Barnsley runner. He runs up and down past me regularly. And he pipped me on the line at Manchester Marathon, and I didn't see him for the full race. And Keith, no disrespect to him, is twice my age, and I got pipped on the line, and I didn't quite break 250. I think it was 250.02 or something like that, or 04. And Keith got a little bit closer because he pipped me on the line. And after the race, I was in, I wouldn't say great shape, but Keith, he looked fresh as a daisy. And I was still, I'd only been running a couple of years, still a bit inexperienced with it. And I spoke to Keith after and learnt off him that he wasn't running fast every single session. He was running slow and long miles. So I think for the marathon, he was training with Dave Brooksbank, and they were doing long, slow miles instead. And they were doing like 80, 90 mile weeks. So then after that, I looked at my training, and at that time I was only doing 40 mile weeks and expecting to get quicker and quicker in a marathon. So my tip number 3 is to train above and beyond. So if you've got a 10k race, look to train above and beyond a 10k. Can you run an 8 mile at pace in training? Can you run a 10 mile at pace in training? And then when you run the 10k, which is 6.2 mile, it should feel a whole world easier. But it's about knowing your limits, and in the marathon you can train above and beyond. So majority of the time, when in a normal world, my last long run before a marathon will be a marathon or a 27 mile run, where I might do whole 20, which I've done previously, and I might do a long warm up and a long cool down, and try and train above and beyond the actual distance, and try and get my time on foot a little bit higher. So this week, for example, I did 24 mile on Thursday, but it was a 10 mile run in the morning, a 5 mile run in the evening, but a 9 mile walk in the afternoon, which we were out for about 2.5 hours. So in terms of time there, I was out a lot longer on my feet than I was when I do a marathon, and I did about 42,000 steps for the day, which is more than what I do in the marathon. And it's about training above and beyond the actual distance that you're going to do and the actual time that you're going to do. So if you're out on your feet having a steady, slow jog a lot longer than you would a marathon, it's beneficial training because you're going above and beyond your Call of Duty, as it goes. And it's just about pushing yourself a little bit further and a little bit further and getting your 10% every single time. And I learnt that from Keith, and he were thrilled to bits with his marathon PB, and Dave Brooksbank, he were thrilled to bits, and they trained really well for it, building up to it. Dave Brooksbank's a lot older as well than Keith, and I think he got 255 that year, but don't quote me on that. And they ran really well, and it were off high mileage sort of training. So after that, I looked at mine, pushed it a little bit further, and took it to another extreme, and that's when it led me to my 170 mile weeks. All fun and games, enjoyed it, and it's got me to where I am today, and I've learnt from it. I wouldn't be doing 170 mile weeks anytime in a rush, but I found me happy medium, and in a normal world it's probably about 120 mile weeks where I do get the most benefit out of my training. But I haven't done that in about a year, so it is about pushing it my 10% as I build into the autumn marathons later in the year. And that's it. So my 3 tips for running that I've learned. So tip number 1, just to recap, is an important and a good shoe rotation. Tip number 2 is if you're wanting to increase the mileage, 10% is good. And tip number 3 is about going above and beyond your call of duty. And that's it for Running Cook this week. So if you've got any questions or anything else that you want answering, drop me a message, put a comment. It was nice to get I got a few private messages last week, which was nice, and a lot of positive comments, which was good. And people that I've seen during the week out and about, I've had a lot of positive comments off them, which was brilliant, and I appreciate your support. And here's on to episode 4 for next week.